Everyone's going on. Welcome to episode 4 of Check the Wire. Myself, Dan Northernlion, Ryan, Gary, the Turner. What's going on, man?
Nothing much, as usual. Excited to be here. Excited to talk shop.
Well, before we talk shop, we talked late last night and earlier, just to give people context, earlier yesterday, there was a tweet that went out like, hey, this podcast was #1 trending in video game in Canada. I'm like, and I sent the message to Ryan and we're like, what the heck? Like, when that happened, what were you thinking?
Well, first I was like, how did we end up in the video game charts?
What do you mean?
Well, I guess we are like kind of tangentially about video games, but when you look at the podcast list, everything else is like, IGN's PlayStation podcast, the Giant Bombcast and stuff like that. But I guess every podcast that's about video games it veers off topic. They ramble a little bit. So yeah, I guess it's fair.
And then were you like, oh, that's unexpected? You're like, oh, just another day at the office.
A little bit of both, I guess. Like I'm never surprised by the support in the community. I think for whatever reason, the community that surrounds both of us is like atypically enthusiastic and like interested in the stuff that we do. And I think we're making a good show, so I wasn't super surprised. But I guess like it is kind of like it feels like we haven't worked for it enough. It is like I woke up and I was like, oh, last week we were like number 43 or something. And then this week we were briefly #1. And I'm like, man, it's just that easy, huh?
Yeah, I have the inverse response to you. And so to fast forward, last night late, there was a tweet that went out. We were #1 trending in video games in the United States. And I was laying, when I saw it, I stopped for a second. I was laying on the carpet in my bedroom. It was like 10:45 or 11 o'clock at night when we were talking. I'm like, what the heck? I think part of it is like, for me, I was really surprised, not because I don't think we put on a good show. And we talked about a little bit, I don't have a context of what a trending show or what a successful show or successful podcast looks like. I have no concept. And maybe it's something similar to, I don't know if you knew this, but I think to get on the New York Times bestseller, I think you have to sell 5,000 copies. Does that sound like
that seems possible, I guess?
Yeah, but like to me, I just was very surprised that happened, and it was the first thing that I've ever been a part of or done that just kind of skyrocketed. Everything else that I've been a part of or have done is like it's like a long, slow journey, which I'm excited to do. So for us to come out of the gate swinging, I can do nothing but thank everyone that's been listening, leaving reviews, sharing it, because it blew me away.
Yeah, very much so.
So, but speaking of success, we're going to talk about that on today's podcast and I want to lead it off to you is really the big question is when you talk about success, I think everyone has their own vision, but I think what's most important is that how you view it for yourself. So that's my question to you, Ryan, to start things off. How do you view success in what we do? In particular for you in your world in YouTube and Twitch, what's success to you? What does that mean?
I've been thinking about this, like, I don't know, probably for like a year on and off. And it's changed like so much over time. And I think it means different things to everybody, right? But like in 2011 or so, success was like, could I get to the point where I could start doing this full time? And even before then, it was like, could I get to the point where this conceivably could be like a supplemental income? Or could I get to the point where like, I could be known enough, I guess, that I could parlay this into like a job in the industry, in the video game industry. But then like over time, as you'd start doing this full time for a while, it's kind of changed. And I've been forced to think about it because I've really been at the same size probably for like 4 or 5 years, probably since like the last big like seismic shift was probably when Rebirth came out. So I've been forced to kind of think about what it means to me. And I think there's like a few priorities. Like one is...
Real quick, can I, just for context, you say seismic shift, you went from what to what in Rebirth? Just so people listening, myself included, like what does that mean?
I mean, like before Rebirth in 2014, I probably had like 250,000 YouTube subscribers, which is nothing to sneeze at for sure. But after Rebirth came out, it was literally like 300. 350, 400, 450, 500. Like over the course of like a couple of years, it went from that to like 700, almost 800,000, where I've basically been since then.
Okay, so tripled. This is like 2015.
Yeah, around
So
2015.
you tripled in 1 year, and then since then you said, okay, you've been kind of stagnant. All right, sorry,
Yeah,
I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted
no,
to.
it's for context.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay. So you
So
said
I
it
think
came down to
like
three things.
I've been kind of redefining it, because for me, success for over the past few years has been like, can I keep doing this full time, and can I keep the analytics at a level where they're not necessarily skyrocketing, but they're in a good place. They vary month to month because that's just inherent in what we do. But are they not trending in a troubling direction? But I've really in 2020 and like looking towards 2021, now that I've put a lot more effort into the content and varying the content and the marketing side of the content, I'm still kind of rethinking what it means to me, because I don't want to dominate too much of the conversation here, but I've got this goal in mind. I'm like, I really would like to hit 1 million subscribers. And on on an analytical level, it literally doesn't matter. Like, there are channels that have 10 times more subscribers than I do that get way less views. And there's channels that have, 1/10 the amount of subscribers that get way more views. And the views are essentially what indicates how well you're doing, at least financially, as a business. And also, I think to some extent, what people want to watch. So I'm still trying to tease out, like, why is that important for me to get to 1 million subs? Which is why I put it on the topic sheet, actually, because I was wondering if you had, A, what success means to you, and B, if you have goals that you've set in mind that you're working towards.
Well, before we flip that, I do want to, when you spent time thinking about, because I just for everyone, I am going to talk about my version of success, but but I got a ton of questions because I think people want to know. For you, what is it about the million? Is it like growth? Is it, man, that's a massive number? Is it the diamond? Do you get a diamond button from YouTube at a million?
I have no idea, honestly.
Okay.
Maybe it's gold.
Okay.
I think it's a couple of things. One is that it's symbolic of like being a channel of relevance on the platform, I guess. Is like, over the years, like 10 years ago, if you had 100,000 subscribers, you were like pretty big. Now there's been, so many, like, the audience on YouTube has exploded. There's channels with 100 million subscribers. 1 million is kind of like, it's a bit of a lower threshold of relevancy, I think, but it's one I'd like to hit just because I've been on the platform for so long that it feels like not hitting it is like, oh, what am I doing wrong? And then I think on top of that, it's also, I mean, it's the other part of the symbolism, I guess, is that, like, I've doubled down on this strategy to make better content, for sure. Like, I think I'm putting more effort into the content, but also B, make a greater variety of content that appeals to a wider audience. And I think like hitting 1 million subscribers is an indicator that strategy is working. And also, it's kind of like a little bit of a middle finger to everybody who thinks that YouTube is just sort of done, unless you're doing it like the wrong way, which most people would say is, like misleading thumbnails and clickbait and stuff like that. But if I could keep the numbers moving in that direction, we could, to me, it's almost like a chip on my shoulder that's like, YouTube's not done. You can do it the right way. It's just going to take a little bit more heavy lifting than it might have, 7 or 8 years ago.
So you said a word that I want to know what it means. So you said you're building this, trying to get to that number is like a sign of relevance.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I have relevance in the industry. Like, I'm aware of that, but I do feel like, I mean, I guess, to be honest, it kind of comes down to like pitching and also like perception by people that are on the other side of the industry, like sponsors and, even viewers as well. I think hitting that like 7-figure number, it is a little bit of a limiting belief to some extent, but I think it's just a nice round number that kind of says like, hey, I've been around for a while, and, you can kind of, it's a brand with some staying power and reach and longevity. Like 813,000, that's great. I'm very happy to be there. But 1 million to me in my head is like, I look at that as a positive thing. I think I can explain it best through a comparison.
Okay.
When you run, you start maybe running, I don't know, like a kilometer or a mile. And then like, it's hard to not have the goal to be like, tomorrow I'm going to go 1.25, or I'm going to eventually, like in my head, I'm like, oh, I want to run a half marathon or a marathon or something like that. But originally, like what actually matters, it doesn't really matter whether you run 20 miles or 26.2 miles in the whole scheme of things. It's just like a goal that you've set yourself that allows you to kind of build a strategy for progress towards that goal. So in my head, I'm like, I want to hit 1 million subscribers. I can start to get everything in line. Like, what do I need to do that? Well, I need to make different videos. I need to cover different games that capture like a different audience as well, without compromising the stuff that the audience that's already there likes so much. So it's really like, when I don't have a goal, it's fine. And I can just keep, hitting the rhythm of getting videos out every day and people like them. But with the strategy, I feel like it helps me get my priorities and principles in order to organize to attack it.
Like you're focusing all your energy towards climbing another mountain as opposed to just maybe circling a mountain and still being okay with that. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay. Because just when you say relevancy, I look at that as a couple different ways, especially coming from you. One, like you're a person in I guess my opinion doesn't matter, but you have a huge presence not only on YouTube but also Twitch, and I feel like we're not even talking about success on Twitch yet, but in terms of, I don't know the numbers and I don't want to botch them, but I know you're in the top single digit percentage of Twitch streamers, right? So
yeah, I would assume so.
So in terms of, like you say, relevance, I look at it and sometimes I feel like that word is thrown around a lot in particular in the gaming community as like an insult or like, oh, you're irrelevant. And it's not something you or I would say, but to hear you say like relevant, I'm like, man, like there's a lot of people that look to you as like the leading source for a lot of different things. And so I kind of don't, I'm going to say my opinion. I don't like the word relevance because it's like, I think it varies. Like everyone has relevance to some degree. It's just a matter of where you choose to, you're relevant on 531, which is weightlifting that you've been, what I mean? Like you have a lot to put out there, but that's why it's just interesting to hear from you that, like, I guess my follow-up question is like, do you think and this is removing judgment or anything, do you think you're big on YouTube and Twitch?
I think I'm big on Twitch. I think on YouTube, I occupy a space that I don't know how many other channels occupy this space where like I can't say that I'm not big. Mm-hmm. Obviously there's channels that are bigger, but there's way more channels that are smaller. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people would murder a person to get to that level. But it's weird. Like I really don't see it like, I guess I'm going to make another comparison. I see it almost like if you were looking at like singer-songwriters and stuff like that. I'm not, your Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber, I'm not putting out something that's going to hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. But like, if you like my stuff, you're going to buy every album for like a decade, almost more like like a James Taylor or something like that.
I was gonna say Grateful Dead because the Grateful Dead people that I know, there's like a whole, like if you're in Grateful Dead, like it, and those people are going to everything.
Yeah, you might see them on tour like 10 times a year or something like that. Or like Fish. Like if you talk to like the average person and you're like, what do you think of the band Fish? They would be like, I don't even know who that is. Like they just new or up and coming or whatever. But they've been around for like 30 years. They have like a relatively small fan base for like widespread appeal comparisons, but the people that like them love them and would like, that's all they listen to.
Okay. So to circle back, and I think we'll probably end up recircling back to this conversation, but we talked about, so for you, success on YouTube, if you're saying, hey, look, I'm in an elevator, I got to not pitch someone, but I got to tell someone, this is what my success on YouTube looks like, you would say what? In like before the elevator gets between floors 1 and 3?
Well, I guess it depends on who I'm pitching.
Okay.
If I'm pitching a publisher, I would be like, listen, like you've got a game coming out and we have the most unique community on YouTube and Twitch, and you'll be able to, sponsor channels. You could pay 5 times more to sponsor a channel with 5 million subscribers. Their video is going to get less views and you're going to get less attention on your game than you would if you went with us.
Okay.
But if I'm talking, I don't know.
You're pitching yourself. You're like, it's like a mirror. Like
success right now on YouTube, to me, are the numbers going up month to month? Because I'm putting in more work right now. And even in most situations, if I'm putting in the same amount of work, I still want to see positive change. Otherwise, that indicates to me that something about the strategy I'm doing is wrong.
Okay. No, that's fair. So for you, it's almost, I mean, it is binary. It's like you'll look at this month, you look at February compared to March and say, like, hey, was this successful?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm super happy with where I'm at. I don't want to seem ungrateful for that, but at the same time, I look at it like you would look at any other hobby, you know? Like if we talked about running, if you ran 26 out of 30 days in January, and then in February you were like, my stamina is lower than it was in January, you would probably be like, what the heck am I doing wrong? Or, you know, am I getting sick? Is there some kind of extra a factor outside of myself that's affecting it? That's kind of how I look at this as well. Is like, you know, I'm putting in the work. So if the numbers are going down, I'm probably putting in the work in the wrong direction. And, you know, I could sustain falling for a while, but if I'm going to be, you know, putting so much work into it, I would like to see the fruits of that labor as well.
Not to get too far off topic, but have you ever seen months when you fell significantly, like a drop off?
It's usually not month to month. It's like, it's insidious. So definitely, and I think people will like hearing this. This is like super behind the curtain. In 2018, basically for like 6 months, my channel was Isaac Slay the Spire, one other video daily. And when I did that, that was probably like 6 months to 9 months. And every month, you know, it's almost like putting, you know, the old analogy where if you put like a frog in a pot of like cold water and then you start boiling it, it won't notice until it's too late. If you looked at it like every day, you're like, oh, the videos did pretty much the same as yesterday, but really they're falling like 1% a day. When you look at it like January versus May, I was like, oh, this is starting to get like, we definitely need to enact some kind of change. So month to month, not really, because I think I have like a really stable viewership community, honestly. But definitely like 6 or quarter to quarter, even if you want to put it in those terms, you can notice it for sure.
It was like the collective of all those 1% added up. At the end, you're like,
yeah,
okay. And so, and just one more question, like not failure, but do you think in the work environment we're in and what we do, I'm interested to hear your take on this. Do you think that it could go away quickly? Like, do you think it could just go like that and you could all of a sudden tomorrow or a month from now, people aren't watching you?
I think so. But I think it's hard to say. I think it varies like content creator to content creator. I think the number one threat to a YouTuber's survival, if they've already made it to a level of success where they're comfortable, is like their own brain. I think you can, like when I went through the stuff in 2018 where I was like, the numbers are dropping, it's discouraging because you're still working, you know, 8 hours a day or 40 hours, 45 hours a week. But you're like, oh, this month I'm, you know, getting less for that than I did the month before. And I think it's easy to almost trick yourself into being like, well, I'm now getting paid less for my work, so why would I work as much? You work less, you put out less. People are like, they see that as a signal that you're giving up, or, you know, you're just putting out less so you get less views in general, and it kind of cascades down to zero. That, or obviously having like a really public gaffe that like destroys your reputation completely. But even that, I think, is less of a danger based on what I've seen other channels come back from, versus just like, I think, getting your psychology in a bad place where you forget. Like for me, I argue with my own community about this, not to be negative, but people are like, when I talk about like the business side of it, they're like, oh, so you're kind of chasing views. And I'm like, no, not really. I see if I was putting out a video that was like, you know, oh, like a clickbait, like a lie, you know, like
you'll
like
never,
exactly.
Yeah.
If I did something like that, or something misleading, or like click on this and you'll get 1,000 V-bucks, like that's trash. Obviously, the way I see it is like when I put out a video, and I want to ask you this as well, because I don't understand. I think the YouTube algorithm is terrible and amazing at the same time. Because sometimes I'll put out a video, 2 games nearly identical in the same week. One will come out on a Tuesday, one will come out on a Thursday. I record a video for the Tuesday game. I go, you know, after the video, I'm like, oh, that was like a 6 out of 10 video. 30,000 views. The Thursday game, functionally almost identical. I finished recording and I was like, I was on fire. That was like a 9 out of 10 video. 75,000 views. And I'm like, how do they know? How does are people sharing the video with their friends? Like, is that big of a deal? But like, I look to the analytics as like a sign that people are enjoying the content, not rather like that I really think like the optimization of titles, tags, and descriptions and stuff like that, I think that matters for search traffic. But for like viewers within your own community, I think the quality of the content matters the most, which is why I pay attention to the analytics.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like there's so many variables that play a role into it that you'll never know, right? Like, what if Tuesday's different than Thursday for some people watching. Tuesday, maybe it's early part of the week, they're at work and maybe they're not dialed in. Thursday, it's like, hey, maybe someone's checked. I think in content creation, I think there's so many variables outside of what we know that I don't even think you can comprehend. And that's why I think why I like YouTube and what we do, it's like a meritocracy. And you'll hear me throw this around from now until the end of the podcast is essentially, if you put out a good product consistently and it gets better and better, it's going to be fine. But if you put out bad videos and stuff that you're not excited about and people don't like to watch, no one's going to watch it long term. And so I feel like, for you, it's funny to hear you say like it's the identical video, but one was double the other. I just think we don't know. Like there's so many variables. I just don't know how we can quantify. And I think that the other reason why I like it is because there's not like a shortcut. There's not like, hey, if you do X, Y, and Z, it's going to equal 70,000 views. You don't know. You just got to love what you do and keep doing it and then see what happens. And I don't know. I think that's to me, that's the exciting part about what we do, but also like it's a scary part of what we do too.
Because we're both putting out gold on TikTok right now, and we're getting crickets in response. And now I've become like that, and I don't want to pivot to this because I want to ask you about your own philosophy on this stuff. But I found myself becoming like those scorned YouTubers who are like the algorithm screwed me. I'm putting out solid gold, and I'm getting like 700 views. Anyway,
yeah, no,
go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say I was just gonna post that on my Instagram story because I posted like, oh man, this one like is really close to 1 million views on TikTok, but I also like to post like hard L's, and it's like, man, it's been like 9 videos of 9 TikToks of dogs, and like in comparison, like a couple thousand views versus like we were talking about views with a K at the end, so like 10,000, 20, 50,000. But I think the fun part is like to me. You just keep throwing them out there, and I think that's the thing that one of the things we share in common is I think for the most part we really enjoy like doing what we do, and so to keep doing it, eventually you do something long enough, you're gonna hit like you had 2 back-to-back videos I think or TikToks were like 100,000, 200,000, but I don't think you and I could sit in a room and tell someone how we did that. It's just You just do it. I don't know,
I think that's like we both have the attitude that's like. If you take an L, as you said, who cares? You know, like if you dedicated your life to doing something and you took an L on it, that's catastrophic. But if you put out a video, like I put out at least 1 to 5 stinkers a week, probably is what and you don't know there's stinkers until they go up. People watch it and they're like, I didn't really like this. And you go, okay, well, I spent a half hour on it. Sometimes you spend a half hour, it's gold. Sometimes you spend a half hour and it's bronze. That's okay.
But for me, honestly, I like the L. It sounds weird, but I like the L's a lot more because it teaches me so much more about the audience and what they want. So if I know, hey, look, I try this and it doesn't work and there's feedback or there's a lack of feedback, I'm like, okay, hey, look, I can kind of understand this does not fit at all. And I mean, both. I mean, wins are nice too because you're like, okay, it's a no-brainer to do more of these style videos or more shows. But I just feel like equally I like both because... And it was almost a little odd. I had this moment today on the show, on my Twitch show, where it's like everything is going really well, and I was like kind of stunned because it's like the podcast, it's going really well, and we were talking about it's a fun, easy show to do, so I don't even think about the other stuff, the numbers and things like that. But so to have that stuff going to a line, and then the Twitch show, everything's going really well, and it's just. It's like there's a weird part of me that I like the struggle because I feel like that almost for me delineates the group, not the group of people we work with, but the people that do the same thing we do. Like there's times when it gets tough and I feel like that's where like I love working when it's tough because that's when you find out if you really like it or not. If you can put up, like if you take a hard L on TikTok or YouTube where you have a terrible Twitch show, it's like, all right, I'm still excited the next day to do it again. And I think it's probably a good way when you take a loss it's kind of like sifting sand out of like if you're farming gold or looking for gold. It like people that, and this is no judgment because I don't care why people go on Twitch, but if you're in it solely for money, that like kind of sifts out in the end. And versus if you watch people that truly love it, yeah, I just think it just kind of eventually it all kind of washes out.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think honestly, I think there's analogs on YouTube. You know, there are channels that started 5 years after me. They get 3 million subscribers in like a year and a half, and then a year after that, they're like, "I'm out. Like nobody wants to watch my stuff anymore." Like if you if you chase trends, you can definitely get growth, I think. But in the end, you're cultivating an audience that is watching you because you're riding the wave of whatever's popular instead of like they actually enjoy your content, which is why I think like for me, and I think this applies to pretty much everybody we work with, nobody has really been like, hey, Fortnite's popular, I'm going to start making incredible builds in Fortnite, and then exploded and then completely collapsed. They've built a community more slowly for sure, which can be frustrating at times, but around people who actually enjoy watching their content for them. So when they pivot to something else, they don't lose 90% of their audience in 3 months.
Yeah, and you said, like these huge channels that pop up and no one wants to watch my stuff anymore. See, I look at that, the way I look at that is that if no one wants to watch my stuff, it's my fault. And that, and I think it's like what you said about the boiling frog. I just don't think things are going to fall off overnight. So there's enough time to catch a downtrend and be like, okay, like you did. I'm putting out the same stuff. I see a downtrend. Let me change what I'm doing. And I'm not saying that's easy or easy to read or insightful, but the point is you did it and here you are. And so I feel like that's kind of the waters we're in, where if you're in a boat and it's going right towards the rocks, it's not like you have to flip it over in one day. You can see it coming and kind of pivot. At least that's my belief on what we do. And I think part of it is what you said, is because it's community based. And that's what I focus my stuff on is building a community. And then it's like, I can't see your community or my community just overnight people 50% leave, but could it be like people are walking out the door one by one and then all of a sudden 5 by 5? Yeah, I think you can read that and then make adjustments accordingly. And I think there's been a few times, and I do this, and I try not to do it in like a spectacle at all, but sometimes it works out like that. But in my Discord, which is a community chat room, I can see when someone leaves. And if it's a name that I recognize a lot and they leave, sometimes I'll reach out to them on Discord and send them a message and be like, hey, what's up? Like, is everything okay? And sometimes you can't, because if you don't have a shared server, you can't send them a message. Or if they come back to Twitch, I'm like, hey, I saw you left Discord. This is, live on a broadcast. But I like to know, because if someone leaves, I want to know why, because ultimately I look at, all right, it's my fault. What did I do wrong? And sometimes it could be like, hey, there's too many messages, or I don't use Discord. But it's just, I always look for that feedback, because I don't ever want to wrong someone in the community, or at least understand why someone leaves.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. I don't go to that level, but I also don't have my own Discord, because I wouldn't be able to look away from it.
Why don't you have a Discord?
I just think like the Discord grew in popularity extremely during a period where I was like, I'm going to isolate myself from the community to some extent, just to preserve the quality of my work, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I still believe this to this day. I've been doing more community stuff for sure, but I don't want people to watch my stuff because they feel like, I want them to watch it on the merit of the product that comes out, the quality of the stream or the quality of the video, rather than like, I feel compelled to watch all of it because, we're part of this community, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Like, well, can you describe that a little bit more?
I think, without speaking down to the way that some other people run their stuff, I think there's channels out there on YouTube and especially on Twitch where basically it's like you're ride or die on everything. Mm-hmm. If I play, I'm comfortable using this as an example because he's a close friend of ours. But like the way that Apollo, who is Dumb Dog on Twitch, or Very Dumb Dog, the way that he runs his stream is not the way specifically that I would run mine, where sometimes he's like, today I have to do my taxes, so I'm going to do my taxes on stream. And there will be like a part of the community that comes there to watch that. regardless.
Mhm.
I don't want to. I see why you would do that. It seems like a more entertaining way to get your taxes done, which is, that's a big plus. But for me, I want to focus on like putting out something that people want to watch because it's entertaining.
Mhm.
And then they want to come back and watch, not because it's me tomorrow, but because yesterday's stream was so good, or like they had a good time watching it, that they want to come back and repeat that experience, I guess.
I guess to lobby back at you, do you think there's people in your community that are ride or die that will watch you no matter what?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think there's anything you can do about it. But I don't know. And I've been puzzling that out over time as well. How I've been way more like into the community recently.
Mhm.
And then, of course, you know this already. The more that you're in the community, the more positive the community is. So I'm like, I should have been doing this way earlier instead of completely separating myself.
Well, so so that's my final question on this end is, what is preventing you from starting a Discord the second the podcast is over?
I guess the number one thing is I don't want people to have instant access to hit me with feedback is what it comes down to. Like there's no way to say it without it sounding kind of like entitled, which is like, I know you've got your own text platform going, which is like the exact antithesis of what I'm talking about right now, where someone could actually hit you up like on your phone and you see it. But for me, I would be annoyed and frustrated if it was like 4:30 p.m. and someone was like, hey, you should check out this game, which is not a fair thing to be frustrated about, but I'm in my productivity mode.
Mhm.
I just want to keep working towards it. Like I don't want to be inundated with messages at all times.
Okay. No, because it sounds like you're self-aware, knowing that would maybe shift you out of productive mode or like dialed in or super entertaining or energetic based on feedback you may get unwarranted versus what you do now, which is, it seems like you control the feedback, you control your consumption of feedback, whether you go to the subreddit or read your comments. You feel like it's a water hose you can turn off and on, as opposed to just like living in a pool. Is that fair? I'm like, is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll take 20 minutes. And I haven't been finding time every day, but a lot of days I'll take 20 minutes. I'll go every video that I posted that day. I'll look at the top 50 comments and respond to a lot of them. And like, I think that's really good, but definitely like, I mean, and it's a positive thing about the community, but I don't want to, it's like 7 p.m. and somebody's like at Northernlion, what's your favorite pasta? Like, I don't want to have that conversation in the Discord. I want to have it on stream.
No, that's.
But I don't want to let you get away. People will be mad at me for letting you get away.
I'm not getting away.
So,
we're wrapping up your success story on YouTube. That's what we're doing. Okay.
So I want to know for you, what does success mean on YouTube and what does success mean on Twitch? And I also want to ask you, do you have like concrete goals in mind or like nebulous goals in mind?
So I think I'll start and I think I'm a little bit more macro level on this. For me, success, I look at it as, and it was a really big thing. And I don't know when I came to that conclusion or whenever, when I got to the point when I stopped comparing. It might've been like 4 or 5 years ago. Stop comparing. I think the number one thing, I stopped comparing channels or viewers or anything. That was number one. So to me, success is kind of like in my own bubble. And I think on a meta level, it's just, can I do what I love to do day in and day out, and it's viable for like me and my family and my life? And if yes, then that's success to me. Meaning that if I can put on a show, make YouTube videos, do a podcast, and that like sustains my life and it like puts my life in like a upward trajectory, not like a roller coaster, but just like up a slow hill. Like, dude, that's my success. And I think that for me, a big part of that is, and I don't like, the one thing I'm particular about is I don't like, and it's no judgment to anyone else, I don't like using my family as content, and I don't really like talking about my family a lot in like a public forum. But for this, I have to. It's like to have the freedom to do a show and be like, hey, Friday the show is going to start a little bit later because I'm going to my son's Christmas recital. Like, to me, that's success, man. And it's like you come back and the community's still there. And and I was talking this a little bit today on the show. Like, I'm a pretty simple individual in terms of like, I don't have a lot of things that I want. Like, I'm very simple. I don't buy a lot of stuff. That's just not what makes me happy. What makes me happy is to be able to do this day in and day out. So success is like, can I keep doing this and getting better and growing slowly over time? Versus like, if this were to go away, meaning like what we do, I know I wouldn't be as happy. Like, I would be fine. I'd be happy, but I wouldn't be like beaming and excited as I am on a daily basis. So in terms of like translating that to a concrete goal, I really don't have one. It's just my goal every day is to try and make things one, like just millimeter better, like make the show a little bit better. It could be something as small as like on my stream deck, like adding like a new sound effect or upgrading something, or thinking of a new theme run to do in Tarkov, just something little every day. Because I look back at when I really started my show on Twitch, I'm like, man, that really wasn't that good. But like 2.5, 3 years later, it's good, not overnight, but because it's like every day you just did something a little bit better. So I think that's my definition of success. I'd be lying if I say in the back of my head, for whatever reason, and I can relate to a lot, hitting 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. It sounds really trivial. It's really important to me because I want to see that thing on the wall, just as like, not as like for anyone else other than me, because it's been one of the most difficult things that I've done. It's to be able to like put out a video in the early days, be like 50 views, 100 views, and like know like to keep going. And there's been lows, and it's just, I don't know. That's really important to me, and it's not something I ever talk about because it's like, to me, it's like kind of trivial, but it's important to me for whatever reason. So I think like, to wrap things up on success, that's my idea of success, just to be able to continue to do this. And I'm cool. And I talked about this a little bit. I think my ultimate goal is to be forced into a position where it doesn't make sense for me not to do this 99% of the time, where it's like, all right, hey, look, I'm looking at everything in the face, and it's like, if you don't do this full time, it's really foolish. And I'm not there now, but I think that's kind of like a weird goal in the back of my head.
No, I think that's a really good goal. I mean, if you and I share this for sure. If you're excited to go to work on this side of this stuff every single day, and you're able to justify putting that much time into it, that's success for sure.
Yeah.
And you got me thinking about it as well, because I'm like, I mean, like, I've got my own 100,000 subscriber plaque on the wall. I look at it all the time. And I got it like 6 years ago. And I'm like, but like, I'm there, like I'm at that level, which is why it's kind of a weird question to answer, I guess. Because like I am happy and I feel successful just being able to do this every day. And I remember when I started doing this full time, the way that it worked, for anybody who's not familiar, I was teaching in Korea. And we were on like a 1-year contract. And around the time, like, I started to make a little money from the YouTube stuff 8 months in. By the time I hit the end tail of like that extra 4 months, I was like, I'm making, the same on YouTube that I am from teaching, but I'm only able to YouTube like 2 or 3 hours a day. I have to teach like 8 or 9 hours a day. So I said, I'm going to try this. And, I give myself like a year. And if it works for a year, I won't be happy. I'll be overjoyed that I got to do this for a year, which is something that is like unthinkable for the vast majority of people, especially at that time when so few people were doing it. Now it's been like, that's 10 years ago, basically. So it's basically been a success no matter what. But it is hard to, like, you got me thinking about like what would make me happier doing this job. And I don't know if there's an answer to that, which is weird. If I doubled my numbers, I would be happier, but I would be like, I wouldn't be 100% happier. I'd be like 10% happier. And then when I got there, I'd be like, oh, I still got to keep the numbers going. So, I guess that's, you could look at that as a bad way. That's like, it's never enough. Or you can look at it as a good way, which is like, I already have enough and everything else is just gravy.
Yeah. And I think like to boil it down, it's almost like the chase, and it's like internal and external chase. It's like, do you still enjoy this? Do you love it? Yes. And then are you growing? And it's like, eventually, like you could have eventually never stop, right? Meaning that you could always grow, albeit maybe sometimes like really little, sometimes really big, but it's kind of like not a rat on a circle on a wheel is not the answer,
Yeah.
but it's like an endless journey where if you know you love this, it's like, and you could do this forever. It's kind of like we said in the last episode. I just feel so lucky, and you mentioned, you know, people at Landscape. If when you find what you love to do, when you're able to do it, I'm just super grateful. And I think, you know, and we've gotten this tweet a couple times, and people asking like, hey, when you're just starting out, what do you do? Or I'm not getting views. Another thing that really helped me that's on my wall right now, and I can't show because of the camera, but I have a cork board, and on the cork board are like letters, people that email me or emails. Whenever I get one, like I'll print it out and I'll put it up there. So there's moments when I'm like, man, that was a rough video or a rough show. Like on my way out, I'll look at it. I'm like, oh, like, dude, don't think like that. Here's, you know, it's just a gentle reminder of like staying grateful and appreciative of everything. But I know in terms of success, I feel very, very fortunate and very lucky to be in this position. And I'm just excited, man. It's weird, and I don't want this to sound ungrateful, but it's gonna come across as ungrateful. So I went away for a couple days for a destination wedding, and it was fun, and I had a good time. But I'm like equally as happy, aka maybe a little bit happier, just in day-to-day life, just working, and because it's not like work. So that's my definition of success. But I do want to pivot back to you because we spent a lot of time talking about YouTube. How different is how you view success on Twitch versus YouTube?
I spend a decent amount of time thinking about it because I think like growth is very different on each platform. Like on YouTube, there's a lot of different ways that an audience can find you for sure, but there actually is a search. So I always know if I play a game the day it comes out and the video's good and it gets snatched up by the YouTube spiders and it gets put near the top of the search rankings, you know, maybe 100 people will click on my video instead of clicking on somebody else's. And maybe like 5 of those people will be like, I like this guy, I'm going to watch some more content. On Twitch, I don't even know. Like, I guess the only analog to that is if you're playing something that is like a game that people are searching for, and then you're one of the top broadcasters, you'll pull some people in naturally. But I really see it's hard to say, but I guess I see success on Twitch is very similar to me, I guess. I think it fluctuates a lot more than success on YouTube, especially with the addition of Twitch Prime and also gift subs. Like you can fluctuate a staggering. There are people on Twitch that double their subscribers every month. There's people on Twitch that lose 75% of their subscribers every month. And, you know, those people change all the time. This, especially if they got huge for, you know, one game that then became like a flash in the pan or something like that. Anyway, sorry, I'm digressing slightly. Oh. I like to see the numbers over like a quarterly period go up, you know, in terms of like active subscriptions, you know, viewership as well. Like chatters, I think chatters, people don't look at that stat. And that for me is like, that's an important stat because I feel like if you put on a snoozer show, no offense, you might get plus minus 25% of your normal viewership and be like, that was okay. When you look at the chat graph, it's like, when we started, people were like super excited, and then they were like, it kind of stinks. Like nobody's talking, right? So I think like that's a really good indicator of like the quality of what you're putting out there. But I guess on Twitch, I kind of look at success a little bit more intrinsically. On YouTube, I do pay attention to the numbers more than I pay attention to the analytics side of Twitch, I think. On Twitch, I'm more like, were there good moments in that show? Did the community seem like they were buzzing? Were they having a good time? You know, how's the mega thread doing on the subreddit? Are people stoked in the mega thread, which is where we talk about how the show went after the show went down? I look way more at stuff like that because I feel like my Twitch audience predominantly, like their patient zero is YouTube. Like they started there, came to Twitch. So I really feel like if I put out the best product I can put out on Twitch, that's the best way for me to be successful on that platform.
And there's no other variables that you can alter to put on a better, like in YouTube, like I said, you have search, but in Twitch, you feel like the only way to be discovered is if you're at the top of the category, or that's it, right? Is there?
I think and I'm glad you brought that up. You hit something for me. The most successful stream I've had this year in terms of viewership was the first indie pentathlon that I did. So I definitely think there's ways to market a stream on Twitch. And just because people are, in my opinion, way too focused on discoverability on Twitch.
Mhm.
And I understand the frustration if you have 5 viewers and you're trying to get to, 50 is hard. You don't have a base that you can pull from and like energize to come watch your stuff. But if you're already kind of there on Twitch and you have 100,000 followers, let's say, or 25,000 followers or 5,000 followers, and you're only getting 10 people watching per stream, like the pentathlon was a wake-up call for me. Or sorry, yeah, no, pentathlon. The pentathlon was a wake-up call for me because I like made an event out of 5 other games that if I previously played them without any fanfare, people would have been like, oh, this again? Like, I want to see something new. And like, I made it a cool little event and I cut a trailer for it that took like less than half an hour to make the trailer. And then it like doubled my average viewer count for the stream. It was awesome. So I definitely think there's slightly outside of the box things you can do to market your stream. And I know you're in the same boat. Like when you have like the pre-Bloodborne, pre-Dark Souls like trailer that you play, and you can also use that to promote the stream on Twitch. And you take the highlights and you put it in the schedule when you tweet out your schedule for the week. We talk about this privately. So few people on Twitch are actually like actively marketing what they're doing, which I think is a hindrance to them. But without rambling too much, I do think that it's more about like not necessarily finding a new audience on Twitch, because I think that's hard. And to be honest, I have no experience with it. Instead, it's about the audience that you have. If you can energize and motivate as many of them as possible to watch your content by keeping it fresh and putting out a good product at all times, as many times as possible, at least, I think that's the best thing you can do. But what do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're talking about your pentathlon. Like, I'm a casual watcher. Like, I'll check in and watch a show and stuff like that. I don't watch a ton of Twitch, but I remember when I saw that trailer, I'm like, man, this is sweet. And like, I watched a lot of the pentathlon because it was like something special, something unique, and something different. Not that the normal show isn't fun, but it's just like, it was an event. So I remember being like, oh, this is sweet. This is cool. But in terms of Twitch, I guess I'll go in reverse. I'll go from discoverability back to reverse to success. I think I got a really kind of weird, not weird, but I think it's a little bit unique strategy on Twitch. And that's number one, I always feel like I'm in the build mode, right? Like you're in the top X, like 1% of Twitch, and I'm in a build mode. So whenever someone's like in a build mode, it's like, all right, you have to, my opinion, you look at anyone that's successful, you can trace them back to one game to start. You got to start somewhere. You got to start, and hopefully, you pick the right game, or if it takes a couple of years, you eventually pick the right game, and then you kind of build from there. But so I think that for me, that was the start. Is like, okay, start with something that's like, hey, you tune in and you watch, Lost or Survivor. It's on Wednesday, 8:00. You're not going to tune in to 8 o'clock on CBS and see like Everybody Loves Raymond. No, it's Survivor time. So I think that was a big part, but also like looking outside of Twitch and finding ways to bring new people in. And I remember having a conversation once, I don't know where it was, but it was like, we're talking about doing all this extra stuff, whether on Twitter or TikTok or YouTube, to bring new people in. And someone says something like, well, that may only bring in one new viewer. I'm like, dude, that's the point. And that's why like stuff like TikTok, you get 100,000 views on TikTok on one video. Maybe of those 100, 10 people may click on your profile, and maybe one will look you up on Twitch. But to me, it's like, you're doing this for 10 years. Like, that's what you want to do. And so, but within Twitch, my kind of unique, I would say unique, but different strategy is, I don't think you'll ever see me play a brand new title the day it comes out. For what you said, like, you get buried. So what I try to do, like, so for example, what I tried to do, and I don't know if it's going to work or not, but I know Neo 2 is coming out in the next 3 weeks. Neo's been on my radar to play. Typically the next game I would have played was Sekiro, but the reason I didn't is I'm like, all right, let me see if I can play Neo with people wanting to play Neo 2 coming out, and maybe some people will check out Neo 1 in preparation for Neo 2. And I know there's probably not a lot of people playing Neo right now because it's an older game, but to me, that was enough of a decision to make that the game choice. It's like playing games that are really beloved, that fit the show, like Dark Souls. but never really play anything that's super popular because you just get buried. So I think that's how I look at discoverability. And then of course, like working with people, right? On a natural fit, whether it's, working with you or Melf or Deadly Slob or Markstrom, like you just connect with people. And if it makes sense, it's like you share audiences, and some people from my audience pick, oh, I like this Ryan guy, I'm going to watch him more, or vice versa. So I think that's how I look at growth on Twitch, but I'm not like hyper focused on it. My focus on Twitch is I'm almost like inverse of you, is like, because I think the weird metrics on Twitch is like you have two really hard analytical numbers of, there's a financial number and then also how many people are watching you. And there could be days on Twitch where, there's a couple hundred people watching, or for me, like 1,000 or 1,200. And it's like, I keep it open. I know some people don't keep those numbers open, but I keep it open and I use that as like a temperature. And sometimes, like when I make a commitment to Neo, I'm like, man, like I hope it does well because I'm committed to it. And so I don't know. I just feel like those are the two numbers I look at. But you brought up looking at the number of chatters. I've never looked at that once. So as soon as this podcast is over, I'm going to look at it, because it's like just one of those, I look at, okay, how many people watched, and like, is the support there for it? So
I think describing it in temperature is a better, it's all you need from an analytics standpoint for chatters.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, when you're watching your stream, I'm sure when you watch your stream and you have 800 viewers and you see the chat flying by, and you go to a stream with like 4,000 viewers and there's like a message every 30 seconds, you're like, I know my chat's doing good stuff. Like they're entertained. They're all having a good time right now. Nobody's afraid to talk. But I think you said a lot of good stuff there. I think it's savvy. You found a game that there's probably people, sometimes they shy away from using words like this, but I think from a business standpoint, it's fair. The Neo is a niche in which there's not a lot of competition because it's like 3 years old and the sequel's coming out. And on top of that, it's not just a play that's cynically like, oh, there's like, for lack of a better word, like arbitrage here. It's more instead like, it's a Souls game, and I've played a bunch of Souls games, so like it's a good fit right now.
Yeah, it's like a good. So I think, and that's the key, is like anything I think you or I do, and I don't want to speak for you. It's not a reach for views. It's like, all right, hey, let me see in my wheelhouse what fits well, that's got a chance to sustain growth. It's not. It's like step one is, does it fit? Step two, do you think this is going to help growth? Versus the other way to look at it. Some people look at it this way, no judgment, is how do I get as many viewers in, and then is it a good fit? Or some people don't even consider if it's a good fit or not. And I think that's where, for like you and me, I know what's a good fit, and I have a good idea of what the community wants, and I center it around that. Do I think people are going to enjoy this? Yes. So I don't know. I just look at it as like community centric versus like numbers centric, if that makes sense.
I think that's fair. I mean, the thing on Twitch again is like, on YouTube, your CPM, which is the amount that you get paid when people watch your ads, it fluctuates. And for people that don't know, in January, usually businesses are like, we just got our budget. We don't have big products coming out. We got, tax season and like quarterly filings and stuff are due. They don't spend as much money. They don't buy as many ads. You usually get paid less. Then December, everybody's like, we got 50% of our annual budget left over. And if we don't spend it, we're not going to get it next year. So we're just going to let it fly. So you can have the same views month to month and make wildly different amounts of money for sure. But the same thing happens on Twitch. You could have a stream that has 50% of your average viewer count, and one person is like, here's 100 gift subs.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something it's on the list of topics to talk about. I didn't know if we would get to it today, but it kind of is like a natural fit. When that happens, right? So someone comes in your channel and gifts 100 people in your channel a subscription. Like, how does that affect you, and how do you process that?
It's a dangerous topic, because I don't want people to not do it for obvious reasons. But I do. I'm going to talk for a minute for sure, because I've got multifaceted thoughts on this. On the one hand, the first thing that pops into my head for sure is like, I'm a little bit uncomfortable. Like if someone buys even like 10 gift subs is $50.
Mhm.
They basically just they didn't hand $50 to you, but you get what I mean. They spent $50
After Twitch
on you right there, which is like, if I went out to dinner with somebody and they were like, I'm going to pick it up, I would be like, wow, that's amazing. Like, thank you so much for that. That's like, you didn't have to do that. I would like fight them over the bill, right? But they just said like, okay, here's $50. And I always like, step one is like, is this person okay, to be honest? Like, are they having a bad day and they want like a quick hit of recognition or something like that? Or is this a person who's been watching for a very long time and they're like, they have the means to support without putting themselves out, and they just want to give back and financially support the show, which is of course always welcomed. But then on top of that, and I've talked about this a lot, I've talked about it with like a lot of content creators as well, but I really see like what I do as a show, and I resist at all costs it becoming just a billboard where you repeat people's names when they give you money. Because for me, and I think they argue in bad faith about this a lot. They'll say like, oh, this guy, he's such a fat cat. If somebody like subscribes to him, he doesn't even like acknowledge it. It's not that I am not thankful for the amount of like revenue that I get from a subscription or 5 subscriptions or whatever, or like a $5 cheer or 50-cent cheer. It's more that like long term, for sure, I see my success on the platform as being a product of what I want to do, which is running a show that is entertaining for everybody and doesn't constantly get derailed every 20 or 30 seconds by somebody subscribing. Because at that point, I don't really feel like I'm doing anything except going live to soak up cash in exchange for repeating people's names and messages and questions. Like I had somebody in chat on Tuesday, and I was like, man, I got to figure out what streamers this guy's watching because they got great ideas. Somebody in chat kept writing, how much does this guy charge to read a message? And I'm like, that happens? People are like, they'll set a cheer limit that's like, if you cheer $5, I'll read your message on stream. And I'm like, wow. First off, why do you want to do that? Like, I don't understand as a human being. You're like, yeah, I'll pay $5 or $10 just to get him to read a sentence out loud. But then on top of that, I was like, I don't know. I was a little like melancholy about it. I was 100%. I'm like, I don't want my stream to be that. Yes, it's the $1 million question on Twitch, right? If you want to run a show, how do you strike the balance between thanking people for the support without which you wouldn't be able to do what you're doing, but also at the same time not ruining the actual quality of the on-screen product by just turning it into like shouting out donations and subscriptions.
So okay, so that's your take on how you run the show. But when someone drops 50 subscribers, like,
yeah,
how do you feel? Like, is it like how do you process that?
It's complicated. The number one feeling is definitely like, I mean, there's like a sweet spot, I think, and it probably varies person to person. If somebody gives out 1 subscription, you're like having a great time. If somebody gives out 5 subscriptions, you're having a great time. If somebody gives out 200 subscriptions, you would be like, what's happening? You're almost, I won't say but I would be alarmed. I would be like, this is like, I need to check on this person to make sure they're okay. That's actually my first instinct in all those situations. Is like, I almost want to put the brakes on I don't want to pretend to be super excited and like, this is incredible, because I don't want to incentivize them to give more. I'm like, you've done too much already. Please, I'm thankful, but please stop. I don't want to lay on the praise and excitement so thick that you're like, that felt great, I'm going to do it again. So I do, at a certain level of generosity, it's much appreciated. Don't get me wrong. And I can put it to good use. But there is an initial hit of almost like awkwardness or discomfort that is like, there's nothing. This is the distillation. It's like receiving an like you got for Christmas, you got your wife something that costs like $100 and she got you like a new Mercedes. Like when you open the gift, you're like, I like the fact that I got a new Mercedes, but at the same time, that's way, way out of line. And there's almost like there's a gulf in there that is tough to fill.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that, because I don't know how to process it, right? And so recently, kind of it's been happening. You still got me?
Mhm.
Okay, cool. So recently, like I'm not calling anything out, but today on the first time like ever, I did the show today and recording the podcast. I was stunned, like just in the middle of the show, like it was just a random show, and then all of a sudden, like one or two people were gifting a lot of subs, and I'm gonna be like, and I told myself and this podcast is their time to share opinions and really for me kind of open up a little bit more. It's like really overwhelming a little bit in terms of like balancing thanking the person and not alienating the people that watch the show, because I appreciate both the same, and then not derailing the show. But also there's a part of me where it's like I gotta get over it's like people donating to you. It's like that's a mass. It's not like someone subscribing, like, hey, it's like Netflix or their favorite show they watch every month. Like that's like comfortable, right? But if someone drops 50 or 100 subs, to me, it's like dealing with taking a donation, which is it just I don't know. I want to provide value, and I feel like, and this is what I've done. I'll tell you what I did. So there's an individual. It's been like hog wild, like it's been crazy, and I sent a message to this person on Discord. I'm like, hey, why did you do this? Because I don't know. And the individual said, well, I've just been watching for a long time and haven't supported, and I want to show you support. And I think I think about what you said in your YouTube vlog or your channel update about placing value internally on entertaining people, and I think that's part of it. And I don't know how to handle it internally. Like, number one, I'm super grateful. Number two, I don't want to derail the show. But three, it's like wrapping your mind around the fact that people are giving you money to do something that you love to do, but on like a inverted scale, right? Like, do I think I put on a good show that's worth $5 a month from a lot of people? Yes, I do. But is it worth like someone throwing down whatever thousands of dollars a month? Do I say no? And then like I don't know. I just, it's a really, and like I said, I don't want to seem I'm very grateful. I just don't know how to process it, and so I think that's what I'm struggling with right now is going back and forth in that, because it's a huge gesture, and I want to thank those people, but at the same time, for me, I don't want people that tune in and watch. To me, I appreciate just the same. So I don't know. It's just a really weird feeling to process that, and I don't think I figured it out.
No, I agree. Like literally 1-to-1 with exactly what you were saying. Like I was so close to interrupting you because
please
the
do
way you said
future.
Like someone gave you $500 basically, or the thousands of dollars. I was gonna say for doing nothing. Like you're doing something you were gonna do already as is because you enjoyed it and because it's already working out well for you on some level. Like it does feel weird. You're like, literally, I'm just playing a video game and like talking and entertaining, admittedly, like putting effort into entertaining. But I almost look at it like the way you were talking about Everybody Loves Raymond earlier, is like if somebody sent in like a $500 check to CBS and was like, I love the show this much. It is a strange thing to deal with, without a doubt. And that's why and I think we come across really well in this conversation, to be honest.
Oh,
but there are, I don't think it comes across as ungrateful. I think the average person would be a little uncomfortable. If like, I think if you were like, we always use like landscaper, or like we can even use a waiter for this one. Like if you were a waiter at like a fast casual restaurant where one person's bill might be like $10 and they gave you a $500 tip, you'd probably be like, sweet. But you might also be like, that's way out of line with like the average and the, what is typical. So like there is something about that. And I think I came up with a bad false dilemma, which is like, would I rather have one person give 500 gift subs or 500 people subscribe? I'm like, of course you'd rather have 500 people subscribe, because that's 500 people that were like, I think this is good, and it's not an uncomfortable amount of money. But like in terms of comfort, I would rather have like 100 people subscribe than one person give 500 gifted subscriptions, just because it does create almost like you can't possibly respond to them in a way that's proportional to the amount that they've supported you, because you haven't done anything to deserve it in the first place.
Well, here's an analogy. I want to take your analogy one step further that maybe gets me like more comfortable with everything, is that you go to the same restaurant every single day for multiple years, and every day it's like, hey, here's your tip, here's your tip. But on Christmas or on New Year's Day or whatever, they hit you with a fat tip. Like, maybe that's more what like Twitch is like. You know, it's not like someone walks in the door and throws $1,000 a tip on your table. It's like, hey, you know, you've whatever, you've seen them every day, and you put their favorite hamburger on the plate the same way for 300 days. You know, maybe that's a way to process it. But I think I don't know. I got to get closer and getting more, not more comfortable, but finding a way to process it. And to kind of just touch on one thing you said about derailing the show. One of the things that I've found, and it plays into the games that I play, and I think it would probably be similar to you. But I try to, for the most part, not interrupt the show to call someone out, but do it during the lulls, right? Like during Tarkov when you're changing loadouts, or during Dark Souls after you die. But I don't know. I think that is an interesting thing because, like you said, if you call it out in the moment, it 100% will perpetuate more of that, which is like, it's mind-boggling.
But terrible. Yeah. Well, that's why I said I think we actually come across really well in the conversation, because I see two different ways of dealing with it on Twitch. And it's probably a gradient. There's probably a billion different ways of dealing with it that fall closer to one side or the other. But there's, us who are grateful, but sometimes a little uncomfortable. And then I see another side of Twitch that's almost in like the sales business, where when somebody subscribes, without being rude, I feel like they put on an act. And the act is like, oh my God, like your tier 1 Twitch Prime subscription has made my day, or like it's prickly, right? Like doing a little routine for every subscriber. Sure, I don't have a problem with that. But at the same time, when they'll get like a $5 donation and lose their minds, you could easily argue in bad faith that this is like, oh, the Ivory Tower streamer, he doesn't appreciate $5 anymore. I think it's more like, I'm an adult living in North America, and I know $5 is extremely nice to get, but at the same time, if someone's laying it on super thick, I'm like, I think they're
like pandering.
They're leveraging human emotion a little bit. That's like, you subscribed and now you feel like super important. If you want another hit of that, you could always gift out 5 subscriptions and then see where that gets you, and
I will
so on and so forth.
I will say this though, to kind of maybe put a wrap on the conversation, is that to me, I would much rather have someone gift 50 subs than a donation of the equivalent amount, for a couple reasons. One of the things I like about gift subscriptions is that it's not just a value for me, meaning that, oh, hey, there's an inherent value for other people in the community that may not have the means to subscribe, but always would want to, or whatever. And it also, to me, on like a selfish level, I've noticed people that, hey, so-and-so gifted me the sub and I stuck around. So I think it's a really cool way to support the show, because it's not like, hey, it is one-to-one benefit, of course, but it's also like other people benefit from it, and there's longevity benefits to it. So I think from a business standpoint, I think Twitch was very smart to do that. But I think from a comfortability standpoint, I think that's where like my max comfort level is. But I don't know. It's just, I just feel like I wanted to bring it up because we were talking about success and things like that. And I feel like for a lot of things that we talk about, when you're on this side of the screen, it's not like something that you just, oh, it's like a normal thing that we process. Like you kind of got to figure out your own way and really comprehend like what you do depends on people supporting you. And then when people really support you, you have to find a way to manage that. And I don't know. It's such a unique thing. I'm glad we're able to kind of talk about it and how we feel on it, because I think we have different opinions, but also just, it's something that is not ever expected. So when it happens, it's kind of like, what do you do?
I think it's human, to feel complicated about it. I think if anybody was like, oh, when I get a $1,000 donation, I'm jazzed. Like there's no hesitation at all. I would start asking them some questions, because for someone to show me that level of generosity, it's awesome, and I'm happy to. I'm extremely grateful for it. But also, I'm like, are you okay? And are you gonna struggle? Like, is your quality of life gonna fall as a result of this? Like, I think it's just, but I think most people are like that. I don't think I'm talking about a huge swath of people that are like, yeah, more and more.
No. But I'm glad we talked about, because I feel like when I've watched you and that's happened, you're kind of like, you keep the plane, like, or the car pretty level. You don't rev up the engine to 80 miles per hour. You're like, you keep it rolling the same way. Versus me, I'm like, sometimes I just get stunned.
Shut down, yeah.
But anyways, man, I'm surprised the time has flown by.
Overtime, as usual. Got to 1/8 of the things that were on the list. That's typical.
So a couple things. First and foremost, I want to thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for all the ratings and reviews on all the multiple platforms. We're working on getting it everywhere. We hear your feedback. If you have any feedback or topics or anything you want us to talk about in the future, I didn't run this by you, Ryan, but we're going to do it live. Tweet using the hashtag #CheckTheWire. And I know I'm going to favorite a bunch, and I can't promise you we're going to get to them in episode 5, but the way we go through topics. But I think it's a good way to share feedback where we can see it collectively on Twitter. So use the hashtag #CheckTheWire. Ryan, any parting thoughts on our way out?
No, again, thank you for the success over the past week. It's been crazy.
Yeah, it's been awesome. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will see you guys next Tuesday, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can see all the feeds at checkthewire.com. Or if you want to watch the video of this, go to youtube.com/Northernlion Tuesdays at 6 a.m. Eastern. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.